to the first edition of The Conspiracy Hour. With me, your host, the hashtag Teacher's Pet, and my sidekick, the head case, Nikki Chase.
The head case?
Yeah, the head case.
Where did you come up with that?
That's what you're called, right?
The trophy case.
Oh, that's...
Just because this is your show doesn't mean you can be changing my gimmick around.
It was an honest mistake. We don't have a lot of time. I can already feel the government satellites triangulating in on us, so let's get into our first topic, the business plot of 1933. Let's dig in.
This is not what this is used for.
That's my inhaler.
I understand it's your inhaler, but you can't just be hitting it like that all the time. It's not going to be effective. His doctor now, too. Jesus Christ.
Nikki, what do you know about businesses and plots?
Sometimes people bitch at me that I need a business plan, and I, quite frankly, I think that's a plot.
Have you ever used ChatGPT
I may have.
to develop your business plan?
You can do that?
Yeah, maybe you ask it to. I don't know how good it is, but there's a whole South Park episode about that.
Oh, shit. What have I been doing?
Behind on the times. Well, the business plot of 1933, also known as the White House or Wall Street Push, is a political conspiracy in 1933 in the United States to overthrow the government and install a dictator. Have you heard of this before?
Is that like happening right now? Is this like
No, this is
2026?
1933.
No, I have not. But it sounds like shit was imploding around the world in 1933.
Well, what do you know about 1933? What else was going on around then?
I believe that is around the time Adolf Hitler was taking power over in Germany.
He was, and then what else was going on around the United States?
The Great Depression.
This is true.
Yeah.
So
we were kind of, I think it started in 1929,
Mhm.
if I remember correctly, but
So we're basically in the midst of the Great Depression.
correct.
So let's get into the setup here. So, in the summer of 1932, thousands of World War I veterans had gathered around Washington, D.C., set up tent camps, and protested, demanding their immediate payment of bonuses due to them according to the World War Adjustments Compensation Act of 1924. The Act of Federal Law established in May of 1924 that granted life insurance policies to veterans of military service of World War I. The actual act promised payout by 1945, but veterans would get a certificate immediately and they could borrow against it from the banks if they chose to do so. That being said, immediate withdrawals were limited to just $50 maximum, and in the case of death of a spouse, the maximum amount that could be paid out as long as it was below $500. So if they died, their spouse would get anything as long as it was below $500.
What took so long? Because, when did the second, or the First World War ended, like 1918? Or is that the start?
That was, so I believe the end of it was like towards the end of 1919, 1920.
So we're talking like almost
30
15 years later.
Yes. Yep.
So
And
they're still waiting for their money.
Yes, and at this point too, a lot of these soldiers are almost homeless or are homeless, so they desperately need this money and they're trying to take this money out against their life insurance policies, and the banks are either denying them or the most they can get is $50 at a time, and that's all they can get, right? So that's not going to get them very far, right? Maybe if they're behind on their house and stuff like that, they can pay for 2 months, 3 months, or a year, but what's going to help them after that? Because all they can take out against that policy is $50. So not even then, imagine you have a house payment, groceries, you have a family, you can only get $50 of that life insurance policy. You're kind of screwed.
What is $50 in today's money? What $1933 in 2026 money?
That's a good question. I should have looked that up.
I think you can look it up. I can't.
You got your phone up? Pull that up. Jamie, pull it up on the big screen.
$50 in 1933. 32 or 33.
This would be 32.
Would be roughly $1,200.
Yeah, rough.
Roughly.
Yep. And that's all you could pull out against your entire policy. So that's rough. So think about that today too, like with the
Some budgeting is
Yeah.
going to be going on.
So imagine you have a whole family and that's what you have to budget on against, and you can only pull that out. That's rough. So,
Plus, they're all like shell shocked,
having seen some shit in one of the worst world wars imaginable.
The trench war.
So by 1929, in the midst of the Great Depression, withdrawals against the banks on the policies began to escalate, and despite pressure to change the policies, they remained the same, leaving many veterans destitute and struggling during the Depression. For the most part, the veterans were led by Walter W. Waters, a former Army sergeant who led what the newspapers of the time dubbed the Bonus Army. So that's what they were calling the army that was marching on Washington and holding up the tent camps. They called them the Bonus Army.
What I don't understand, because they were trying to get the bonus that was due to them?
Yes.
Is that propaganda to be like, oh, they're entitled?
No, most of the people were actually on the side of the Bonus Army. They believed that they should be getting it. Because remember, a lot of the time, most of the country was in the midst of the Great Depression and struggling. So there was a huge rift between the haves and the have-nots, and a lot of the working class people were on the side of the veterans thinking they should get their payouts. So, despite Waters' leadership, the veterans of the Bonus Army hadn't had made much ground until the arrival of Marine Corps Major General Smedley Butler. Have you heard of him before?
Smelly butler. That's unfortunate.
Okay. All right. Okay. Where's that at? Smedley Butler.
Come on, that's funny.
Okay, so Butler was a popular military figure of the time, having received 16 medals in his time in the Marine Corps, 5 of those for heroism.
Can I say something?
Yes.
I have heard about this.
Mm-hmm.
I listened to a podcast about it one time, but I don't really remember too much. Other than, I think he's the one that kind of saves this whole...
Yeah.
He's the hero.
And he's also written a big book about this too that a lot of people have talked about before.
What's that book called?
Well, we'll get to it.
Oh, is he dead?
Yes. If he was alive today, he'd be like 130.
R.I.T. Smelly Butler.
Just trampling on that legacy. I'll say, so in addition, Butler had seen the worst aspects of war. He had fought on the front lines and seen what war does to soldiers and how they were treated when they returned home from service. So, all the traumatic aspects of the front lines of war. His final deployment as an active soldier was not even an act of war, but to China for the Boxer Rebellion to protect an American oil company's refinery. So not only had he seen some of the worst aspects of war when it comes to the front lines and what it does to soldiers and how the soldiers were treated when they came back, right? Not getting what they were paid or what they were due, and then basically no health care or anything like that too, right? But on top of that, he was basically used as a racketeer too, sent mostly to protect capitalistic interest overseas and not really to do anything to protect the American people, more or less just to protect things for capitalism or big corporate interests.
Yeah, the haves.
Yes.
Yeah.
So, with marchers gaining momentum and national coverage, President Hoover ordered the marchers removed by the U.S. Army cavalry troops under the command of General Douglas MacArthur, and he also ordered the destruction of their camps.
Quick question.
Mm-hmm.
Is this the MacArthur that was also in 20 years from now that's like, you're a communist, good sir?
Yes.
Cool.
Mm-hmm.
Cool. So he seems like a guy.
Yes, and with the destruction of the camps, he also ordered the burning of the tents. So something similar to what was done with the Occupy Wall Street movement. This is kind of where that originated from. Mm. They marched on camps, moved all the soldiers out, and then burned all the camps and everything that they had built there.
Lovely.
Yes.
Seems like a lovely.
Yep. So not anything new there. Something we've always been doing. Mm-hmm. Butler was appalled by what he saw in Washington, D.C. That day, Butler, a lifelong Republican, responded by supporting Democrat Party candidate Franklin D. Roosevelt in 1932 for the U.S. presidential election.
Ah, old FDR.
But that wasn't the end of his activism. After the incident in the summer of 1932, after that, Butler began doing speeches and writing papers denouncing capitalism and bankers, going on to explain that for 33 years he had been a high-class muscle man for Wall Street, the bankers, and big business, labeling himself as a racketeer for capitalism.
I'm a racketeer for capitalism.
That would be a great professional wrestling character.
Yeah,
I'm the racketeer for capitalism.
Brother! We should talk to Major about that.
Oh.
Bring! Gimmick idea.
Who?
What?
Who?
Sorry.
My mortal enemy? Anyway.
Thanksgiving was a lot of fun.
But President Roosevelt didn't deliver on the promises made during the campaign. Roosevelt had promised that the government would provide jobs for all the unemployed, but it had the reverse effect of creating a new wave of unemployment by businessmen frightened by fears of socialism and reckless government spending. Wealthy and business elites alike likened Roosevelt to a communist and socialist looking to destroy private wealth in order to subsidize the poor.
Oh, that sounds familiar.
I was about to ask you, does that sound a lot familiar to some things you hear today?
Oh, humans never learn.
I know, it's shockingly familiar language that we hear today, just tweaked a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
Needless to say, there was a big rift between the wealthy and the working class during his presidency, and his policies only furthered the divide. With the Great Depression looming, poor and working class Americans wanted more investment in social services and New Deal policies. While the wealthy elite saw the New Deal as an attack on capitalism, the very foundations of what America was founded on.
I don't think we were founded on capitalism.
Well, that's what they certainly thought.
I mean, I've taken a civics class or two.
So,
in case there's any confusion, Nikki Chase is a bleeding heart liberal. Just wanted to clear that up.
Okay, so in November of 1934, the U.S. House of Representatives Special Committee on Un-American Activities authorized to investigate Nazi propaganda and certain other propaganda activities. That's a mouthful. So,
they could workshop that, I think.
Yeah.
Just been a little bit more concise.
Well, it was more simply known as the McCormick-Dickinstein Committee. So a little bit more simple.
Wait, say that 5 times fast.
McCormick-Dickinstein Committee. McCormick-Dickinstein Committee. McCormick-Dickinstein Committee. Okay, so they began examining alleged plot to seize the White House evidence in November of 1934. By the 24th of that month, the committee released a statement of its preliminary findings of the hearing. This is from their hearing.
I bet it doesn't go well for smelly butt.
Jesus. Okay, so one of the individuals who testified at this hearing was Major General Smedley Butler. At this hearing, Butler detailed a plot led by Wall Street bankers and other business elites to back Butler in a coup under the pretext that the president's health was failing and promised him 5,000 men and financial backing. On July 1st, 1931, Butler met with Gerald C. McGuire and Bill Doyle. McGuire was a Wall Street banker for Grayson, Murphy and Company and a member of the Connecticut American Legion, so that's very important. Doyle was commander of the Massachusetts American Legion. At this meeting, Butler stated he was asked to run for national commander of the American Legion. So, why is that important? That's important because at the time, the American Legion was a fascist regime.
Oh, I didn't know that. I've wrestled in an American Legion.
Well, you would have been wrestling in front of a bunch of fascists if you were there in 1930.
Oh, are they still?
No.
Oh, good. That's good to know. It didn't seem like it. We just rented the venue, so.
So at the time, they saw the New Deal as communism run amok and take over of America, and they felt the only way to take back America from the New Deal and those sort of politics was through fascism. A lot of those American legions were actually founded by businessmen who put the funding forward to build those structures and get the men into that. Yeah, so that's where it originated from, and eventually would break away from the fascism into the legions we found today.
Mm.
Yeah.
I don't know much about the legions today, but I also didn't know that their background was fascism.
Mm-hmm. So, McGuire and Doyle felt that Butler was the best man for the position as national commander.
Initially, to be a fascist?
Well, not to be a fascist, but because of his command and such a big reputation for the troops, right, and as well as the general public, they felt that he was the best person to be the national commander, right, because he had such a good reputation with the public and with the veterans as well, right? So what better person to lead the troops, especially if they were going to march on Washington?
Gotcha.
So, initially Butler was hesitant to take the position.
Butler was like, "Follow me, boys!"
Butler knows the position of American Legion, and Butler is staunchly anti-capitalism, right? So he knows that they're fascists and huge capitalists, right? Because if you're fascist, then you want to see the government and business together. You want to see them working together. So, and as an anti-capitalist, he's...
Well, no, he doesn't want that at all.
Exactly. So, that goes against his core tenets. But both McGuire and Doyle felt that Butler was the best man for the position because of his popularity and with the general public and veterans. At the second meeting, McGuire and Doyle offered to gather hundreds of supporters at an American Legion convention for speech. Curiously, before he left, McGuire left Butler a typewritten speech with what they proposed he read at the convention. In it, it urged the American Legion Convention to adopt a resolution calling for the United States to return to the gold standard so that when veterans were paid the bonus promised to them, the money they received would not be worthless paper. So this immediately kind of like struck a nerve with Smedley Butler, and he was kind of immediately like, that's odd, right? Why would they leave a paper telling me what to say as a speech?
Yeah.
Especially something that's like, oh, we shouldn't be off the gold standard, we should get back to the gold standard. Because that was something at the time that a lot of business elites were like, we made a huge mistake moving off the gold standard, we need to go back to it.
Are we still on the gold standard?
No.
No. The silver standard?
No.
No.
Alright.
Well, that'll be the next episode.
Oh my god. So this began to raise Butler's suspicion even more. After the initial meeting, Butler never saw Doyle again. However, McGuire did introduce Butler to Robert Sterling Clark, an art collector and an heir to the Singer Corporation fortune. In addition, McGuire had told Butler that the New York American Legion formation had been underwrote by the business executive Grayson Murphy. On August 27, 1934, McGuire and Butler met for the last time at a hotel. According to Butler's account, it was on this occasion that McGuire approached Butler and asked him to run a new veterans organization and lead a coup attempt against the president. He promised him 500,000 American Legion troops marching at his back, in addition to as much financial backing as was needed to march on Washington and seize the White House.
Question. Was Hoovy, Herbert Hoover, not a very popular guy? Not a very popular president? All I know is he's from, Indiana, right?
It would have been Roosevelt that was in the office.
Oh, RDF or FDR is in there now. Gotcha.
Just remember, New Deal politics.
Okay.
Wheelchair.
Yeah.
Failing health. So that was the whole premise of this.
In 1934 already? Because he didn't die until 45.
FDR's in the office. Remember, he has polio, so he's stricken to a wheelchair. Mm-hmm. And their whole premise is they're going to tell the public that he has failing health, and they're sending these 500,000 troops led by Smedley Butler to seize the White House under the guise of his failing health.
Oh.
But truthfully, what they want to do is seize the White House, go back to the gold standard, and get rid of the New Deal politics because they don't want to see their taxes raised to pay for what they see as subsidizing. Social services.
Social safety
nets.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
I hope you're all thinking very carefully and thoroughly about this story.
There's a lot of parallels to today. After the final meeting, Butler told the story of what became known as the business plot to Paul Comley French, a reporter for the...
Why does everybody have such
I don't
three,
know. I don't know. Names back then were so weird.
God, you had to go by a middle name or a hyphenated last name?
We should start doing that in pro wrestling. Everyone has to have 3 names.
Yeah.
Nicole Elizabeth Chase.
There you go. That's better.
And that is my legal name.
Logan Squire Chase.
Winston Wilhelm.
Follett the Third.
We'll have to change it. Winston Wilhelm. Wallace the Third. So it's WW.
What's Wallace's name? What's the Wallace, right?
No, Walleye, Wallace, Tantonio.
Antonio.
Yeah, follow. It's a nod to his Italian
Oh my gosh.
background.
Tantonio.
Tantonio!
Oh, good grief. All right. So, he's talking to this reporter for the Philadelphia Record, and he kind of spills the beans on what he's been told. When contacted by French on September 13th, McGuire, right, Charles McGuire, who had basically come up with the whole plot, spoke openly about the plot and of his desires for fascist America. So basically just spilling the beans to this French guy, right? He met with this reporter and was just like, yeah, I told this to Butler, and yeah, I'm fascist and I want to take over the government. I think that these policies are stupid, and I think that we should return to the gold standard. He was open about what he said to this reporter.
He's honest, I guess.
Yeah. So he steered the reporter to some of his associates, and French wrote an expose that appeared in both the Record, which was the Philadelphia Record, and the New York Post on November 21st. Butler, meanwhile, finally told McGuire his true feelings about the plan. And it goes like this, and I think this is a badass quote. If you get...
Butler's the good guy.
Yes, Smedley Butler.
Smelly Butler.
Yes, smelly butts. If you get 500,000 soldiers advocating anything smelling of fascism. I'm going to get 500,000 more and lick the hell out of you, and we will have a real war right here at home.
Damn!
Badass. We're gonna get sued.
Just do the Beavis and Butthead one.
Okay. So, on November 22nd, the New York Times, the opposite of the New York Post, which was largely owned by members who were involved in or associated with those that were involved with the plot, came out with their counter article on the story, describing it as a gigantic hoax. So, Butler reported the beatings to various government officials, which led congressional hearings in 1934. All of those who Butler named as being involved denied the charges, including McGuire, which is kind of weird since he spilled the beans to the reporter. In part because of the lack of concrete evidence, no charges were brought. President Roosevelt intervened to essentially suppress transcripts of the most damning testimony, apparently out of concern over the public outrage that likely would ensue. That
It's
testimony...
almost like another file.
Where someone just kind of like interrupts so the real people can't be charged and...
Or redacts because of the potential for public outrage.
So that testimony was not made public until journalist John Spivak unearthed it and published it in 1967.
It's almost 30 years later. Over 30 years later.
Yep. The Congressional Committee final report, released on February 15, 1935, said, "In the last few weeks of the committee's official life, it received evidence showing that certain persons had made an attempt to establish a fascist organization in this country. No evidence was presented and this committee had none to show a connection between this effort and any fascist activity of any European country. There is no question that these attempts were discussed, were planned, and might have been placed in execution when and if financial backers deemed it expedient. This committee received evidence from Major Smedley D. Butler, retired,
At this point.
twice decorated by the Congress of the United States. He testified before the committee as the conversations with one Gerald C. McGuire, in which the latter is alleged to have suggested the formation of a fascist army under the leadership of General Butler. McGuire denied these allegations under oath, but your committee was able to verify all the pertinent statements made by General Butler, with the exception of all the direct statements suggesting the creation of the organization. This, however, was corroborated in the correspondence of McGuire with his principal, Robert Sterling Clark, of New York City, while McGuire was abroad studying the various forms of veterans organizations of fascist character."
Quick question. Are they still alive at this point? McGuire and Butler?
At this point, yes.
Okay.
Yes.
So this is like we're 30 years on from when the actual...
No, and this is not. No, this is them releasing their findings post-investigation. So I think this would have been in February of 1935.
Okay.
Okay.
But
so,
the records, the whole records weren't released until
67. And I think at
Gotcha.
that point, most of them all would have been dead.
Gotcha.
Yep. McGuire, Doyle, Sterling, and the other co-conspirators all denied any wrongdoing, and most of them escaped with not even a smudge on their name. McGuire, however, died suddenly and, according to some reports, mysteriously in Connecticut of pneumonia on March 25th, 1935, shortly after the hearings.
Why mysteriously?
That's a good question.
Because what, he's got a... anyway. They weren't real great with their heart health back then.
They weren't. I guess according to some folks, they said that his health was deteriorating from the stress of all the hearings and everything, and he took ill from pneumonia and died. But people found it very odd because he was so young and healthy before the hearings. So that's why it's called mysteriously.
Gotcha. All right. Okay.
Another conspiracy within a conspiracy.
Do-do-do!
What's that quote from the JFK? It's an enigma trapped within something. I can't think of it. I'm going to put that on there. I'm going to find that quote in the Oliver Stone movie and I'm going to put it in there.
It's a mystery! It's a mystery wrapped in a riddle inside an enigma!
Okay. Capitulated in national fame, Butler became even more famous when he wrote War is a Racket, a short time later. In this book, he said of his years as a military man, "I spent most of my time as a high-class muscle man for big business, a gangster for capitalism, who might have given Al Capone a few hints. He died in 1940. The business plot is a conspiracy theory that isn't so conspiracy after all. In fact, despite transcripts being hidden and a lack of concrete evidence, Butler was able to provide enough evidence to show a clear link between a few prominent members of the business class and their fascist plot to overthrow the government. This theory could have not been a theory at all if Butler had not stood up to McGuire and his cohorts and turned them into Congress. Despite its implications, many still don't know or have not even heard of the business plot. What do you think of that?
Well, as I said at the beginning of this, I thought I had never heard of it, and I have heard a little bit about it, but I don't know the ins and outs. And the fact that, like, essentially, it sounds like Butler was a hired gun for business and capitalistic interests, unfettered capitalistic interests. And if he hadn't been like, whoa.
Yeah, and one of the things about Smedley was one of the last things for his full-time deployment as a major general, he was kind of on the front lines, but back when he got put on a base that was really deteriorating and housed a lot of soldiers that were coming back from the front lines to recoup and stuff like that. And the place was deteriorating when he got there, falling apart. The soldiers got one meal a day. They were usually cold meals, cold showers. And when he got
Delightful.
and when he got there, he made sure to up it to 3 warm meals a day, hot showers, and basically turn that base around. But like I said, he also kind of not only saw the shell shock of the front lines, but how the soldiers were treated and treated terribly by the U.S. government, which was essentially hiring them as, martyrdom for capitalism, right? Go out there and do this for big business, but not for the actual country.
For America.
Right. So he basically, by the end of his career, had become jaded to the whole cause. And then to have these guys approach him and be like, hey, we want you to lead this army against this guy who you backed for president and overthrow him and install a government that you don't even believe in is kind of crazy.
Yeah. I don't know if they just didn't pick their muscle man very
Poor
well.
calculations.
Yeah,
Poor calculations, yeah. And I mean, I understand what they were going for because they saw him as the guy who had like a great leadership with veterans and with the general public. It's someone like, George Washington at the start of the American Revolution, right? He was someone who was seen as a great leader by everyone. But at the same time, too, like he had already been speaking out against capitalism. So I really don't know what they were hoping to get out of it. It's very bizarre.
Yeah, I really didn't think that through.
And I don't know if it's because he led the march with the bonus army and they thought, well, maybe he'll march against Hoover and be with us against the New Deal policies. But if he's speaking against capitalism, it doesn't mean he's going to suddenly want fascism.
Yeah, that's a little bit of a turn.
Yeah. So, shout out to Smedley Butler for what you did, turning those guys in. Thank you so much. We don't have a fascist government because of you, but things aren't great right now.
Smedley, if you're listening.
If your ghost is still around.
If you have like an heir that you'd like to...
Yeah, James Butler, if you're around. Craig Butler.
Are you just naming names?
Yeah.
Oh. I was like, you know him?
Yeah, I'm best friend. I knew him back in high school. That was the first edition of the Conspiracy Hour. Thank you, Nikki Chase, for joining us. I hope you had a good time. I hope you learned a little bit.
I did, yeah.
So, and I hope everyone at home learned a little bit too. We will come back with some more conspiracies, dig into some different things like maybe Bigfoot, maybe some aliens, maybe even some wilder things indeed. But that's for later on. Maybe I'll even let you host an episode.
I want a tinfoil hat if we're gonna go that path. I want legit tinfoil hats.
Well, you gotta make it.
Do whatever.
Alright. Well, we'll see you next time on The Conspiracy Hour.
That's not what it's used for. That's not what it's used for. It's not a daily inhaler. It's a rescue inhaler. Rescue inhaler.